water resources. Will the Deputy Prime Minister advise the House what steps the government has taken to deliver critical water infrastructure across Australia? Is the Minister aware of any threats to construction of water infrastructure, particularly in my electorate of Capricornia?
Good question.
The Deputy Prime Minister.
Well, Mr Speaker, I thank the honourable member for a question, and I understand the frustration she must feel with the Labor Party's inertia and incompetence and excuses in anything to do with water infrastructure. Every day we are working harder to make sure we deliver on water infrastructure. Just this morning I had the Minister for Water from Western Australia, Minister Mia Davies, and we signed off a further $6.3 million funding for 7 feasibility studies across the state of Western Australia. We talk about projects such as a Mile Up Wellington Infrastructure and Water Use Improvement Project, which, when constructed, will provide a further 9,000 hectares of irrigation and create 1,500 jobs. We talked about the Southern Forest Project, which would involve the construction of a 15 gigalitre dam and create a further 225 jobs. We discussed also the expansion of the Ord River, which would double the capacity of water, taking irrigation and jobs all the way from Western Australia back into the Northern Territory. And what we've also done is made sure that we continue to work for the further development and continue to strive for the further development of Queensland. However, we're getting no support from Queensland. Even though we put $19.8 million on the table for 14 feasibility studies, not one of these have been started. Now, even though we've put $130 million on the table for Rookwood Weir, we haven't heard sight nor sound about them wishing to start this from the Queensland government. Just to show you the form of inertia and what we're up against, the former Premier of Queensland, Premier Peter Beattie, announced in 2006 that Rookwood Weir would be completed by 2011. He even announced the funding to accelerate its construction. In 2006, Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk was also elected, and so she was elected on the promise to build a dam which she still hasn't even started. 10 years later, in the ironically named Building Queensland, in the department named Building Queensland, they've said they're going to have to wait for another year before they get the business case done. This is ridiculous inertia, hopeless incompetence. It is absolutely epitomises what the Labor Party is, whether it's their inability to keep the lights on in South Australia or build a dam in Queensland. However, there was one dam they built. They built Cotter Dam in the ACT. It started off as a contract price of $120 million, but that's where the CFMEU got involved. By the time they'd finished, it cost $409 million. In fact, in 2012, the CFMEU blockaded the site. This is the same CFMEU which has donated more than $2.3 million over 5 years, 2.14 to the Labor Party, and everybody asks where the rest of the money go. Well, to their coalition colleagues, the Greens. And what did we get for that? What we got for that was 112 CFMEU representatives before the courts and 1,129 breaches of the law.
The Deputy Prime Minister's time has expired.